right, welcome to the podcast. Have a special guest today, Damien Durandt. Special shout out to my sponsors, firstly, and of course, the Gold's Gym here in Sandton, South Africa. Thanks for coming on, Damien. How's everything been?
Aiden, firstly, congratulations on your new podcast. I'm sure it's an exciting new venture and all the best to come. Yeah, so far it's been an okay year. Things look like they're starting to turn for the better. So let's see.
Yeah, well, let's get straight into the interview. I wanted to talk about your childhood in boxing, because not a normal sort of childhood, I'm guessing, because like boxing is a totally different sport to what people are usually, like people usually go for cricket, rugby, soccer, but you were born into boxing. How was your childhood being in that environment?
Yeah, it was exciting. I think it was because my father was a boxing trainer and manager, it was nice for me to spend time with him and obviously travel around South Africa with him and sometimes overseas with him. So it was a nice upbringing, good father-son time, and I enjoyed the sport. You know, I saw the time that athletes put in the gym and the dedication that was required for them to become successful. And I think that's anything in life. If you put in good time into something, you're bound to be successful in it. And yeah, I think over the years I just fell in love with the sport, and I think it was because it was something I did with my dad. And yeah, here we are today, and I'm managing and training boxers.
Remember, there was another interview your dad did. I can't remember who did it or where it was, and he said like he never wanted you to come into the sport of boxing. He kind of just wanted you to have like, I don't know if you perceive it as a normal life.
Yeah, he wanted me to become a lawyer. He didn't want me to go. He said he didn't pay for private education for me to get hit on my head. So I guess it was just something he didn't want for me to get involved in. And me growing up, I wanted to become a boxer. I wanted to do amateurs, and my family wouldn't allow me, my mom or my dad. And I was just like, fine, no problem. I'll just be around the boxing all the time. And I think when I just finished school, and I just said to myself, well, maybe it's time to go to university. I applied, did the usual thing, accepted. My dad said, why don't you just take a gap year and come work by the gym? And so I did, and I never went back to I never went to university because of that. I fell in love with the sport. Personal training, got more involved with boxing, and yeah, I just took it from there.
Did you ever? So you said you never got in the ring, right?
Yeah, I never got in the ring. I used to sparring. I did with some of the pros. I did. I put in some rounds with some of the South African fighters every now and again. Obviously, not at the level that they are at, but it was nice. You know, I think it humbles you when you get hit on your head and on your chin and in the body, and it humbles you to know that boxing's not a game. You know, it's something serious. It's life-threatening, and fighters put their lives on the line when they get in that ring. And being a trainer, having sparred other fighters and that kind of thing, you understand that perspective of how dangerous the sport is, and it adds that little bit more respect for the sport. So yeah.
And if you were a professional boxer, what weight division would you campaign in?
I would probably have to say 66. Welterweight, yeah. I don't think tough opposition. Yeah, no. I think if I had to, I think 66 would probably be the division. I think it would be a stretch for me to get a 66, but I think that's where it would be at a semi-dehydrated form. I'll probably get to about 66.
Now, I know we've spoken about this because we've spoken a lot throughout since I've known you. But your dad's legacy, you're trying to live up to it, surpass it. Does it matter to you?
Surpass it, not really. Add to it, most importantly. It's important for me to continue the legacy by adding more and more champions and continue to produce results under the Durandt's banner. And it's important for me because it's a family business, and I look after it, and I have a lot of pride around it, and that's what pushes me to keep producing champions. You know, it was the first and foremost, it was important for me to produce a world champion, which I did because my father said, just go and produce one world champion. And I did that, and I feel like I accomplished what he wanted to see me accomplish. So I think for now, what I do now going forward is a lot for myself, but as I said, to add to the family legacy because it's a household name. Yeah.
And talking about just legacy and stuff, the tactics that your dad used to use when he was a boxing trainer, you obviously observed many times, you're in the gym. Do you employ those same tactics, or are you a completely different tactician to your dad?
I think we two very different people. My dad was a lot harder as a person, tougher on people. I'm more like, if you want to do something with your life, then you've got to be serious about it. If you don't want to be serious, then cheers, you know what I mean? Then don't do it. So in terms of tactics, I think it depends. You know, there's some things I do use that my dad used to use as things that I've learnt along the way now in boxing, and observed along the way, studying and going more into the sport, that I've taken onto my own, and also just being open-minded to different things in boxing. I think it's not the same, but I do definitely use things that my dad did. There's some elements of his strength and conditioning that I utilize. There's certain things during my pro teaching hours and that kind of stuff where I use the same methods, but in terms of tactics in the rings, it varies. I think every fight's different. I may take things that he's used in the past, and I might bring in other things that I've learned along the way now.
And you sort of shot to relevance, in and around the time. When I mean relevance, I mean you started producing like really good fighters in and around the time of your dad passing. How much does that impact you to this day? His passing.
Look, it was very difficult. Everyone always says it's called the year of the first of everything: first birthday, first Christmas, all of those firsts. Walking out to the ring, he's not normally there. Those kind of things all impact you, and it was difficult. My dad passed away on the Friday. The following Friday, I had Makabu making his return back to the ring, and the Sunday I had another fighter. So a week later, and I was in the ring, and it was very, very difficult. Mentally, I wasn't, I could say, in the best space, and it helped give me drive because I wanted to make him proud. So that's what it did, and it helped in some ways because it made me push, and I produced champions in that time. I had my biggest year in 2019. He passed in 2017, but 2017 was a big building year for me. 2018 started to produce champions. 2019 I had a massive year, and then obviously walking into 2020 and producing a WBC world champion, I accomplished what my dad did, except I did it at 29. My dad did it at 33. And it was a massive accomplishment. There's only 3 trainers in South Africa that have produced WBC world champions. It was my dad, it was Elias Shabalala, and me. And if everyone goes back to history, Elias Shabalala was my dad's assistant trainer at the time. So he learned a lot from my dad, moved on, and produced his own world champion with Dingon Tabela. So it's something historic, and we all know that the WBC, the green belt, is what everyone wants. So I'm happy to say I produced it at 29. Juniors defended it, and I hope to make many more. It's probably one of my proudest accomplishments because I feel like I completed a task of my dad's. He always believed Junior would become a world champion, and I feel like I could accomplish that for him, and now I need to set my road and go forward.
I mean, looking at his numbers, I mean, all those champions that he made, your gym is not as packed as his. You've got more of a smaller setup in terms of your amount of athletes you use. So do you ever envision yourself producing those sort of numbers with the current situation that you got?
Yes and no. A big concern for me currently in South African boxing is if you have too many fighters, I don't think you can get them all fed. And that's a problem. I believe that these guys depend on you to help keep them fed by getting them fights and sponsors and all those kinds of things. And I think when you start to get too big, it becomes very difficult to accomplish those things. And with the amount of active promoters there are in South Africa, I think if you have a big stable, it's a tough task. It definitely is. And I don't want to put myself under that amount of pressure, because when you start to put pressure on yourself about finding fights, I think you may lose focus in getting good performances in fights. And I know when your stable starts to grow, you can't give 100% to every single fighter, and it becomes very difficult. So for me, I don't want to go too big. There was a time where my father had 40 professional fighters in his gym. It was mad. There was times we were fighting on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. 2 fighters on a Friday, 3 on a Saturday, maybe another 2 on a Sunday. In my dad's golden years of boxing, he was having an average of nearly 200 fights a year. My best so far I've had is 30. So sport's in a different way. It's still in a good way. I just think there was more active promoters that could give fighters more opportunities in those years than there is today. I think we're a bit more picky as to what we look for nowadays. I think we try and look for more of an elite athlete than just an athlete, and a special champion and not just a champion. So I think that's what our mind frames have shifted to in the boxing world, and I think that's why I don't want to have a massive gym. I want to produce stars and keep my focus on my fighters and get the best out of them and grow from there. If it's I would rather make a champion that could be a 3-time world champion with 3 different belts. Do you know what I mean? Having won an IBF, and a WBC, and a WBA, and a WBO, you know, then saying, okay, he's only won an IBF, now I must find another one to win a WBC, and another one to, for me, I think maybe if I can have an elite athlete that produces 2 or 3 different world championships, I think that's a win, and that will add to the record.
Right, so it's just about getting world champions. That's the goal with every boxer that walks into a gym. You can't, as you said, you're looking for that elite. If you can't foresee someone becoming a world champion now that you have like a couple of boxers that maybe not going to become world champions, they're on the end of their careers, but like now, as a guy walks into the gym, they have to have that potential to become a world champion.
Sure, you may not see him becoming a world champion when he walks into that gym, but like every fighter and every good boxer, he grows from fight to fight. But you've got to look for those little highlights that stick out, that say to you, okay, this one's got the traits of becoming something special. Will he become world champion? We'll never ever know. He just could meet the wrong fight at the wrong time. You know, Philip Ndo could have been a huge world champion, but he met Floyd Mayweather. So you look at those aspects and you say, unfortunately, just the timing was wrong. Wrong place, wrong time. Sometimes it all comes down to timing, and that's very important. And South Africa's always produced great fighters. It just comes down to timing. You look at Mzonke Fane, he fought Barrera. Fortunately, that's what happens. You meet great fighters at certain times, and you just can't overcome that task because they're just that elite, that next level up, you know. So, yeah, I'm excited. I look forward to what the future presents, and South Africa's got a lot of talent. I see a lot of kids walk into my gym, and I see a lot of South African fighters that are hungry for good gyms. You know, I get inboxes all the time, and I just can't respond to some of these kids because I don't want to let them down. So I rather be honest and upfront with them and say, look, I can't take you, or I don't want them to come into my space and I don't give them what they need, and rather they find someone else that maybe can give them what they need, because, like I said, I want to focus on a smaller pool and produce great results.
Okay, I want to quickly switch to now, 2021. Andre Thysse, very recent news that he passed away as well. You were very close with him, and at the time, obviously, very difficult subject, but it's been maybe a month or so now. How much did he mean to you?
Yeah, Andre was a very special person to me. After my dad passed, he was sort of like a father figure in boxing for me, and a person I could chat to. The first person to give me an opportunity in boxing, actually. No promoter had any interest in working with me. They didn't know what I have or what I could do. And Andre gave me an opportunity. He put Colombo and Daniel Brewer on his bill. It was my first night out. And yeah, I was in a championship fight, my first night out. Daniel was fighting for the WA Pan-African against Thomas Oosthuizen. It was a big task. Tommy wasn't really boxing, he was coming back. Daniel hadn't boxed in like a year and a half. He was coming back, so it was an interesting fight. Both fighters had dynamics to face, I'm sure, in their training camps. And yeah, it was my first night out. He threw me right into the deep end, and I respect him for that because he made me work. And from there, our relationship just grew from strength to strength. He was very influential in Colombo's career, getting him going. A lot of my fighters, I would say probably 80% of my gym had fights under Andre, and he meant a lot to me. You know, he took on a lot of battles for people, and a lot of us look back and, well, in that time, we'd look at it and be like, why is he doing that? And after he passed, I sat and I thought about it a bit more. He was an advocate for boxing in South Africa, and he wanted the best for boxers and for people in boxing. He wanted everything to be fair, and he just wanted to see the best out of boxing. And I think that's why people are now valuing Andre as a defender for what we wanted. You know, some people just would rather just keep quiet and let it be. And we needed the change. We needed to put pressure on the local commissions and that kind of stuff to get the change. You know, fighters were sitting where they couldn't fight for SA title because they didn't meet the criteria of the 3-fight rule. But Andre fought it, stuck it out, dug deep, and found the amended regulation in 2005, brought it to Boxing South Africa, and now that rule's changed. Yeah. Boxer has to have one fight at the division, and he can fight for the South African title. That's because of Andre. He didn't rest. He wanted to make the change, and he got it done. So he was a very good promoter. He won Promoter of the Year I think he helped a lot of people. He advised a lot of people, and he was a valuable person in boxing. And for me, a very important person in my life, in terms of just normal advice in life as well as boxing. And we had a great relationship. I trained his son today, and Brandon's gone on to be a good success. And I think Andre's very proud of the relationship that me and Brandon have formed and the success that Brandon's bred. And I want to continue to make more success with Brandon to make his dad proud.
Right, and obviously that's the next question I was going to ask. Brandon Thysse, he obviously might not fight straight away because he's got maybe the dealing of that. Do you foresee him fighting this year?
Yes, he will fight this year. I want him to fight in December. We're busy with his promoter. We'll probably fight in December. And I think it's important for him to get into the ring because he needs to overcome those aspects of his dad not being at the fight, his dad not being there during camp, and he's going to have to face it inevitably. And I think December is a good date. He's got a bit of time to, mourn and find his feet. He's already started coming back to the gym. And I think we're going to see a great performance from Brandon because I think he wants to make his dad proud. And I think this is going to be a fight that I want to make in honor of his dad. And Brandon knows the importance of that. So I think we're going to see a very good, polished performance from Brandon.
Right, and then another one of your boxers, which unfortunately was dealt a similar fate, was Ricky Shabalala. He hasn't come back to box again after his fight. Do you foresee him ever coming back?
I don't know. Ricky unfortunately went through a very difficult time. He lost his brother during the preparations for that fight. And the week of the fight, he lost his mom. And I'll never forget, I went to him in the change room and I said to him, "My boy, do you want to take this fight or don't you?" And when I approached him with a question, I had something that sat in my mind. The night Sugar Boy Malinga fought for the WBC world title, his brother had passed away. And he got into the ring and he won the world title. So deaths can sometimes in that situation bring out the best in you and the worst. And I didn't know what it would do for Ricky. So that's why I brought the question forward to him. And I said to him, "Do you want to fight?" No, he said, "No, I want to fight. This is for my brother." And his brother had passed away about 5-6 weeks prior to that. So I said, "No problem. Let's go." And unfortunately, if I look back on that, I don't think I'll make that decision again. I think I would just call off the fight, regardless of what the fighter feels, if he wants to or doesn't want to. But Ricky made the call, and I think as a manager, next time I will make that call. However, it was a learning lesson for me, and I think for him. I think for him, he now realizes he can't deal with that emotion, that amount of emotions, and confine it, and then go into the fighting space. So you learn a lot about yourself as you grow up, and I think he hasn't come back to boxing, I think, because of the current situation. I think he knows it's going to be a bit difficult for him to get a comeback fight. I could get him one. It's not a problem. I think it's the consistency of training. Straight after that, his little one was born, and he's been very involved with that. And he's been busy with the personal training space. Will he come back? I don't know. Let's see. He tried to come back, started training, faced a little bit of an injury, and then he's been out since then. So we'll see.
All right. Okay. So we'll see. Maybe Ricky would address it on his own. I suppose it's up to him to basically come forward and do it. Okay, let's go to a much lighter topic. You have been all over Europe. I don't even know where you've been. It's been like a secret. But you've been going to fighting in Russia, and you're fighting in the DRC with Illunga Makabu. What's going on with that whole situation? Like, are you basing him overseas in like Russia? Does he not look to go to like, I don't know, like other hubs like England, USA?
I'm not scared to go anywhere. As long as you open the checkbook and the money's right, Junior will go anywhere. Junior's fought all over the world. We've done training camps all over, and he's fought all over. He's fought in France, he's fought in Germany, he's fought in Russia. He's done training camps in America, Europe. I mean, he's been all over. And Junior's not scared to fight anywhere. And I think the only reason we've seen him fight in the DRC is because he wanted to fight in front of his people, and he had good support from the government. And he's a national pride. He's the only world champion they've ever really had, and he's loved in the DRC, and the president is very proud of him, and I'm very proud of him and his whole team and his family. And he's gone from a guy that got knocked out in third round for a world title in 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 a bad way, where we generally see fighters don't come back to come back and win that same world title. So that's an incredible accomplishment, and I believe Junior will unify the division. And I think there's only a handful of fights at that cruiserweight division that could be tough fights for Junior. I think Bradis could be a hell of a fight for Junior. I think it's a very good fight for Junior. With regards to Okoli, he's still early in his career. He's only starting to show development now in his last 2-3 fights. Before that, there wasn't a lot there. And we haven't seen him tested yet. It's okay when you're blowing people away. It's what happens when you start to have to dig deep in fights. So we're going to see what Okoli can do. And then you've got Arsene Goulamirian as well. So good fighter, tough, comes forward. Could be a good fight with Junior, And those are the kind of fights I want to see him in. The rest in the division really don't interest me, or do I see much of a threat in. There's competitors, let's put it that way, but not at that level. Junior's at 33 years old now. He's in the prime of his career. He needs to make the most of the next 2-3 years, and I would like to see him in the big fights. Unifications is what he really, really needs.
All right, and Illunga Makabu has got a boxing manager who arranges the fights. I'm assuming for him, and Emmanuel Colombo recently signed on as well. What was the thought process? Was it difficult to find Emmanuel Colombo fights?
Yeah, I said to you, Hayden, we've chatted about it in the past on your SA Boxing Talk show, and I said to you that he's run out of opposition in Africa. There's no more. And when I signed him to Garba Promotions, my whole plan was to have a fight and then start to get matched against international opponents, and that's not what happened. We landed up continuing to fight African opposition, where Colombo just coasted through, made easy work of it, but he needed to be tested. And, unfortunately, it just got to a point where I think the networks in Europe are better, and with the work that Tariq Jr.'s manager had done with Junior, I felt it was the right move. Colombo wanted it, and I was fully on board with it. And there we go, he signed with him, and we got the Majumov fight. Was it a disadvantage being inactive for 16 months because of COVID? Yes, it was. Was it a short preparation fight? It was. But Colombo needed to answer questions. Does he have the capacity to mix at that level? Has he got the ability to step up? And can he handle it? And he did. To some degree, I think he showed a lot of credibility for a guy that hadn't fought in 16 months, coming to the ring with 4 weeks preparation. I think he looked good in some degree, Majumov is no joke. He's the WA number 1. He's in 7 fights as a professional. He's had a huge, extensive amateur background. He beat the Olympian, a great fighter. And I think we're going to see some nice things from Majumov. I think if Colombo had prepared a little bit longer, I think things could have been a little bit different that night. And he answered my questions. He showed he has good power, because Majumov after the fight looked terrible the next day. And he showed he had the skill set to mix it for 10 rounds with that kind of fighter. And I think we're going to still see exciting stuff from Colombo. I still believe he will become a world champion. I think a fight like that has brought out a bit of hunger in Colombo. Knowing you're not the superstar yet, you need to still put in the work to become the superstar. And I think it sparked a bit of fire. And I think we're going to see some interesting stuff come from Colombo.
I saw that on his Instagram. His speed increased. He went for his mindset seems like he's in killer mode.
Yeah.
The next fight for him, would it be? I don't know if you know all the next steps, but would it be something to get him back on the get him back in the win column?
So that was my plan. He was supposed to have a small outing on Joyce's bull, TLB bull, and unfortunately his opponent never arrived. He had passport issues. They wouldn't allow him to leave Malawi to come in for the fight. And so that fight never happened. That was just going to be a small keepers fight. And so that didn't happen. So now let's see. He might have a small fight. He may have a big fight. But let's see. I think he'll probably get into the ring before the end of the year. That's what I would like. He's had a nice little rest after the Majumov fight. It was a tough fight. You watched the fight. Good competitive fight. but I want him back in the ring before the end of the year. And yeah, I think the mind frame's different. He's got a lot to deal with now. He's just got married, so he's got to provide now. And I'm sure eventually we're going to hear there'll probably be a baby on the way, so that's going to add more incentives. So yeah, he's got some things to fight for now as well, which adds a bit of spark to the fire.
So for him, do you envision like the World Championship the same as like going along Illunga Makabu's footsteps?
Yeah, it's maybe the WBC route, maybe the IBF, WBO. There's many organizations, but I definitely think the boy's a possible world champion. Without fail, I've always believed in him. I know you have too. He's one of your favorites. Yeah, so I think you know as well that he's got the capacity to do it. It's just like I say, timing. Hopefully, you meet the right fighters along the way.
I can't speak to you and not drop Emmanuel Colombo's name. Like it's a sensitive, like you got it. If it's on SA Boxing Talk, it's gonna happen. So what's your goals and ambitions now? Like apart from making world champions, do you have any like personal goals that you want to reach within the next couple of years? I know you wanted to train the European fighter.
I did that. Interesting mentality, lifestyle, very different. There were some things I had to see from Europeans that are different to Africans, and the lifestyle and the different distractions. So I've seen that. I know how I can deal with it more if I go into it in the future. It was an interesting change. It was cool. It's done. I would do it again, definitely. And for me at the moment, I think outside of boxing, I'm just happy in my space. I'm happy with my gym. I'm happy to continue working with my fighters. Maybe in another 2-3 years, open up another business. Look at either maybe not expanding my gym, but maybe going into a bit of something else. I think it'll be nice. I think in terms of a business management kind of role, I think when you open up another form of business, those elements can contribute to your boxing side. So yeah, I think that's something I want to do. But like I said, my goal right now, unification for Makabu, definitely. I want to see Colombo become a world champion. I want to see Chake fight for a world championship. And Dumazweni's on the comeback. So you're going to see something nice. And then I've got that little hot prospect, Tetelelo and Corsi. That boy is fighting on the 25th of September. That boy is deadly.
I have a question for you, right? Because like, I'm looking at the lightweight scene and who's coming up on the scene. You got Nkosi, you got Talent Baloyi. I mean, these guys obviously might match up in the future. It'd be senseless to match two potential champions right now. But is there anyone else in that division that you even see?
So he's no longer a lightweight. I've moved him to junior welter. His last preparation, he was supposed to fight at lightweight. It was difficult. We made 63.5 comfortably the fight before, and now we were going to have to make 61, and we were just battling to cut that little bit off. And his opponent tested positive for COVID, so he didn't end up fighting. And I just saw it's going to take a little bit too much out of the kid to make 61. So I'm going to keep him at 63.5. Yes, he's a short junior welter, but Javante is a junior welter, and he's also short. So as long as you've got the skills, I think that's most important. But that kid can fight, eh? Really, he's something special to watch. Yeah, we've got maybe Jabulani McKenzie coming back to junior welter.
Sure, do you think? But that can't be happening, right? He has to earn that fight, though, right?
Us, definitely. Yeah, no, my boy's still at 4 rounds. I mean, his next fight's 4 rounds, and then he's moving up to 6s. So definitely. But I'm saying there's possible matches. Yeah, those are the kind of matchups we'll see. Jabulani McKenzie, you've got Nomeva, you've got
big players in that division.
the SA champion. Yeah, you got Gif Bolo. Yeah, he's a tough guy. He comes to fight. He's one of those there. He'll be there to fight. Whether he wins or loses, but he's there to fight. He's going to give you a fight.
You guys turned on the fight against him recently because you have SA title ambitions, right?
Yeah, so I have SA title ambitions for Marcus, as well as it didn't suit me to only have 5 weeks to prepare for Gift, right, where Gift's been consistently training in the gym, and Marcus has got a full-time job. So when I take a guy that's got a full-time job and I must try to get him ready for 5 weeks against a guy that's always in the gym, it gives me a tough task. I'd rather say, okay, I need 7, 8 weeks or 9 weeks to prepare my fighter, and then I can get him ready. So I made the decision. It's a fight I want for Marcus, a redemption fight, and but not with that kind of notice. My guy's got a full-time job. He needs to prepare correctly, and I said, nah, let me rather put him on Joyce's next ball, and take it from there. But my goal is the SA, so we're gonna see what's gonna happen now, because the SA champion was defending his title. Maybe he's making a voluntary against us. Maybe.
Yeah. All right, and Jackson Chalke, you mentioned him earlier in the piece. I wanted to go back to him because he's like on the cusp of fighting for something really big, and he's a flyweight, and it's a bit of a thinner division. Maybe you can manipulate the situation and get a world title shot.
You know, the flyweights division is a bit of a difficult one at the moment. You've got Sonny Edwards defending against Mama. Then he's got his mandatory against Ricardo Sandoval. So he's booked. You've got Nakatani making his defense against Acosta.
He's a good fighter, that guy.
Yeah. So that's busy. The WBA, the Lakian, he's just inactive and doing whatever he wants to do. So you're not going to get him because Jackson's not rated in the WBA. And he's fighting like once every 18, 19 months. So he's not as active as he should be. And then you've got the WBC champion, Edwards. And Martinez, which was touch and go from him and Jackson fighting. His last fight was possibly going to be Jackson. They landed. So no, his fight he just fought now, Martinez, that he won against another Mexican. It was touch and go for Jackson fighting him, and I was busy with negotiations, and it was looking prospective. But because DAZN the zone was trying to launch their Mexico model, they wanted 2 Mexicans to fight.
Okay, what about now? Like, has the gates open again?
The gates are not open because there's an interim champion, McWilliams Arroyo, and Martinez has to make his defense against Arroyo. And then I would probably imagine we're going to see Martinez make a unification and then leave the division, which then opens up a door for a vacant world title. However, you've got Christopher Rosales sitting at number 1. You've got Maruti at number 2. You've got Ricardo Sandoval at number 3. And Jackson at number 4. Now, Ricardo's the IBF mandatory. Number 1 is Christopher Rosales. Number 2 is Maruti. And number 3 is Jackson. So if Rosales doesn't want to fight Maruti, that fight doesn't happen. Maruti fights Jackson. We've got an eliminator in South Africa. Who's going to promote that fight?
Yeah, where's the money?
Where's the money?
Yeah.
So there's that difficulty. It's challenging to see which world title Jackson will end up going for. I did reach out to people in the WBO, not the WBO organization, but boxers that are rated in the WBO, and they've declined fights against Jackson. It's difficult at the moment. You know, I could secure an IBO world title for Jackson, but is that what he needs? Does he win a world title? It's nice, he won a world title, but it's not my goal. My goal is I'd like him to fight for a legitimate world championship because he was a former Olympian and he's got the credentials to warrant him fighting for a legitimate world title. So I'm working on some things. Maybe there's going to be something before the end of the year. You know me, I keep quiet until things are announced.
I've been ringing questions and I never get answers to them, but you do say when it happens, like you'll be one of the first people to tell me.
So let's see. He might have a nice fight coming up. If I can close the deal, if the deal will come together, then yeah. But ideally, I'd like him to fight for a world title. I would love for him and Maruti to fight for an eliminator. It's not too big of a fight for Maruti.
How much social media banter do you expect for this fight, if it happens? Or do you think it's just like a respect thing?
I think between the two fighters, it's respect. Maybe a bit of banter between me and Colin. You know, Colin will say he knows Jackson. I'm going to say I know Maruti. And we're going to have a good fight. Yeah, so it's like whatever it may be. But Jackson's come a long way from where he was with Colin, you know. I think he only had like 5 fights under Colin and then he left. And he's been with us ever since, where Maruti's had extensive accomplishments with my father, and he's the same fighter that was there. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, it will be interesting. There'll be a bit of banter, but I think it'll be a good fight.
Yeah.
I think South Africans would love to see that fight, and a tough fight. Maruti's closing in at the end of his career. Jackson's also closing in. Jackson might have the fresher legs because he's been in less wars, and we'll see what happens. But hopefully it's for an eliminator. That would be power. or a vacant world title. You never know.
All right, so the future is definitely interesting. I have to ask this: the situation with getting fights locally. Have you found it difficult? I mean, I know it's obviously the times, but I mean, you particularly, are you finding it difficult?
Yeah, it's not easy.
The preliminary fighters.
Yeah, my smaller guys. I've got a few youngsters. To get them fights is difficult. I've got about four youngsters I'd like to get going, and it's just difficult at the moment. And what can we do? Unfortunately, that's the times. So that's why I say having a big amount of stock. Where do you get all these guys fighters?
Yeah.
I'm sitting with 4 guys that need to make debuts. We haven't made debuts yet because there's not enough promoters to give these guys action. So it's tough at the moment, but we're recovering from COVID, and once we've recovered, I think next year, once people really get on their toes and start to make things happen, and we allowed crowds at the boxing, then I think everything will start to get going. So I think we need to see out the year, and hopefully next year things really start to open up.
All right, and I think we've covered all the topics. Is there anything I haven't asked you?
Yeah. So tell us more about your new venture with your podcast. Tell us what's your plan, what's your goal, what do you want to accomplish?
We always do this.
Yeah, I'll turn it on you.
Yeah, no, the goals is basically to get out the podcast. I don't want to put anything out there for like I don't want to set any expectations out there. But the goal is obviously to grow within boxing and outside of boxing, not just boxing, because I feel like the markets in boxing in South Africa is limited. Let's open up the gates to some of the other markets. Potentially we'll see some interesting guests coming in now. I have started with what I know, which is boxing.
Yeah, it's just to get familiar, I guess. Yeah.
Episode, now you as well. So we're moving on in that direction. I don't want to give away too much, but as you know, I've got in with the Gold's Gym in South Africa, which has been an amazing venture for me. I got very fortunate with that. So.
No, lovely setup, Hayden. I'm very proud of you. I'm glad you're expanding from your business, but we need you still in boxing, so don't run away. Don't run away. We need you. We need your post-fight interviews. We need your build-ups for fights. So don't run away. We need you. And I hope that you bring your new guests as spectators to boxing.
That'd be cool.
Utilizing them to add some more viewership to the sport of boxing. We need it. And I wish you all the best with your podcast. And hopefully I'll be here again.
You will definitely be here again. I'm gonna pull a Jake Paul and pull those guys into boxing. Thank you for coming on, Damien. I appreciate it.